And welcome back, everybody, to
Welcome.
another episode of
Medicine from our hands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with your host, Dr. Charlie, and
Blossom.
woo. Let's see.
Oh. Let's go, let's go. Come on. Faster. Come on.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it here.
Yeah, so we are back in the studio. Very excited for
Mm.
today's topic.
Yeah.
We had a couple of conversation, and we just thought this would be a really fun, controversial, but really needed conversation for today, just because we definitely felt this in our own presence. I often get this question asked of me all the time, so I think it's a deeper conversation that we should have. So,
The questions. I love the
yes,
questions.
the
They're
questions.
so good. Someone in recent history told me, fall in love with the question.
Yeah.
Don't be so consumed with the answer. And shouldn't we all?
It's all about the right questions
Yeah.
to get a show going like this, right?
Yes, but I'm glad we talk about it off camera, like in our own real lives, that then we can bring it here. It's special, but it's important because it's not every day you see men and women coming together in this way, but like in general, right?
Yeah,
Misogynistic tendencies, the patriarch, matriarch, all of this.
yeah, and I think it's also usually like there's also typecast or gender flows, right? Gender roles for people in certain kind of groups where there is men and women involved. And so, what's really interesting is we're having this deeper conversation about really platonic relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in platonic relationship, we talk about the platonic solids, right? The elements, the four elements are built in platonic solids. So platonic is a very platonic.
Plato. I want
Yeah.
to know more about the root word of play
Ooh.
because play is in platonic and it shows that that's fundamental in that relationship.
Yeah, it's spelled
It's
differently, but
play.
yes, it's
Of
in the
course,
same.
but
Yeah. So the topic of conversation, y'all, is um all about platonic relationship and how we can have actually friendships with men and women without the sexual attraction. I think in today's society, so often are we asked whether or not we are romantically involved with someone that we're hanging out with.
mm-hmm.
And too often it's like, what happened to just being friends with another opposite sex, right?
Wow. Yeah. Where do you think it got lost?
Oh, I that's that's such a layered question. I think that's
Mm.
just a generation kind of desensitization where we're at the point where we are now. I think the job space has changed quite a bit,
Mm.
right? Because it is in the more modern age. Past after was it World War II when the women started to show up in the workforce, that relationships between men and women started to uh, change in the workplace. And now today, after what, 20, 30 years now, well, probably 40 years since the 60s, we're now facing basically men and women in workplaces together. But there's always this, like, people talk about sexual tension between men and women, and that they assume that every time there's men and women that there is a sexual tension between them. But I find in my world, actually, I the sexual tension is very rare, and most of the time I get much more friendship relationship type platonic relationship with women compared to what when I'm in men's group, they always go, "Oh, did you want to like have a romantic relationship with her?" No, I'm just talking to her as a friend. "Oh, you have no interest?" No, then why are you talking to her? Because she's a cool person.
Mm.
And it's a very common question I'm asked always, like, just because I hang out with somebody, even this conversation about us, right? Like this deeper conversation, people are like, do you guys have something together? No, we have great conversation. Why can't we just stay there?
Pull up a seed.
Yeah, and have a deeper conversation, right?
Pull up a plate. Take a bite.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it's more fulfilling. Well, this is controversial, all of it. I have many hot takes, so how
Yes.
about that?
Yes.
But so I will just speak freely. Man, what it is this. What it is, okay? Um it's a great privilege, honor, responsibility, mm, powerful endeavor to find and connect with any soul in this life. Let it be of someone of the opposite gender, race, energy. You, when you start to get to know them, you start to get to know yourself deeper because you're now seeing your lens differently. So if you rush all the way into a romantic relationship with anyone, may it be your fiance, partner, husband, wife, you miss a huge part of their soul trying to connect with you before you get to the bedroom. And in these last few months, maybe in this last year, I have had the privilege, the honor of co-creating with incredible male counterparts. And I have incredible platonic relationships, clear communication. We strategize, Heartstorm, this podcast, David, Mish. So, what I can take from it as a woman experiencing this and the rarity of it is women and men come together. Maybe it's collaging, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's qigong, maybe it's tea, but don't miss out on the power of a connection or get caught up in, I don't know. I don't want to call intimacy or that romance with another partner as something you shouldn't look for. Look for that as well, but don't miss the friend in the friendship because friends will come and support you in the most unexpected, beautiful, true, powerful, loving ways. And if you're only focused on the sexual part of the relationship, I'd say you're missing out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's kind of like there's so many ways of connecting, right? Let's say we were just using the idea of a chakras, right? We can connect with the first, where we're really trying to create safe space for each other, in general as friends. That second chakra doesn't have to go into sexual because this is where our creative energy comes from, right? So you have an opportunity to, instead of having a sexual connection, you can have a creative connection. So actually being able to heartstorm together, come up with new ideas, being very imaginative, where you have both the polarity of the masculine and feminine coming up with ideas. And as you go up, even in the heart space, like why can't we have a loving relationship with a friend, and it doesn't have to go into the romantic sexual partnership, right? And I think I was just, as you're speaking, and I was just really still deeply in thought of the question you just asked about where did it all go wrong. I think one factor is our relationship with our parents.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. That's the root. But then ready? This is the layered, right? Daddy issues, mommy issues, mother wound, father wound. It's sister wound, whether it's all.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to look at today's numbers, like how many people are married still, or how many people are divorced, right?
Yeah.
Number one thing I run into is single mothers today, like in every age
They
range.
almost outpopulate everyone.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. So that means that the child is being raised under one parent family.
Of course.
So that means that they're not seeing
The polarity.
Well, the duality. Of communicating together. So you're not seeing the mother, father, two male
Dynamic.
and female partners that have that dynamic of even having that romantic relationship, but like having a reverence and respect for each other without that anger. And because really, if we're talking about single parents, something happened that they couldn't come together anymore, right?
Yeah. And that's the truth. But I have met single mothers who have chosen single motherhood, which respect to each and every one of you goddesses, power. However, if there's other circumstances where a mother and father have separated and baby is still young within the first year, something tragic or maybe traumatic, maybe it was amicable. I always hope and pray for that, but has happened. And 0 to 4 is the most crucial and important time of any child or any human's life. So, what comes from having not the example of the feminine and masculine is why it's hard or unfamiliar or awkward or uncomfortable for men and women to come together today. Because if you didn't see it as a child, how could you see it as an adult? How can you identify as an adult? Why would you think it's a safe space? And I'm here to just live the fruits of having strong, powerful men connections as friends. We're creating camping. We're gonna be camping this later this month. So it's just the possibilities are endless when you come with that purity.
Yeah, yeah. And I think another deeper conversation is in growing up, which gender were you around more? Was there more of one gender? And so you're more comfortable with the one gender over the other, right? Like I grew up with three sisters and a mother. So I had my dad there. My mom and dad, I mean, technically were separated later, but I watched them kind of argue a lot, right? And so I learned to speak to women because I'm surrounded by women. I have three sisters, right? So I never saw them, obviously, romantically, right? So because of that, it wasn't my initial reaction when I meet women to go, oh, can I have a romantic relationship with her? Versus some men grew up with a lot of men around them, and that's a very common conversation. I definitely remember my high school, college days, I think 50% of that conversation were about like, yeah, hooking up with women, right? Because that was a very potent time that we were sexually active, that we were thinking about women, right? Just being sexually active, whether it's women or men or whatever preference you have, and I think that's when we spend a lot of time doing that. But really, once you get like your first, second, or third, partner, and you get out of that, you start to realize that like partnership may not be the only thing, and maybe like I want to follow my career, or I want to like kind of
Right.
live my life, and eventually I find a partner that is much more suited for like my maturity as I get older. But it seems like sometimes the maturity of your personal life and career will not match the growth that some people have in relationship, where you're still kind of probably dating the same kind of trauma, with your first girlfriend as you're trying to date with that seventh girlfriend, and it's the same repeated pattern that like, you have mommy issues that you're repeating with that seventh girl, right? And it's very common that it's a very common pattern that we see. And in doing that, what happens is if you have parents who were split up, and you are basically copying your parents' version of how to talk to the opposite sex, most likely is going to end up in a separation, right? Because you're not seeing necessarily, I think what we're not seeing is a male and female people, partners, even friends, getting to an argument and finding the mutual respect for each other, and then ending that conversation. I respect where you're coming from. I don't have to agree. And you respect where I'm coming from. You want to agree, but let's just still be friends and still do stuff together.
Sure.
But at that moment, we're like, no, I don't agree with you. And it's like, and it's okay.
Let us move. Let us travel.
Exactly.
On to the next. That's the most powerful pivot, because that's where a relationship breaks. When you're in argument, especially with a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife, it's that after the fire's been turned on and the house is in flames, do you run to get their belongings and yours and run out? Do you just run out with yourself? Do you run out with the dog? Do you look for it matters. It's important. And I say that to say, so if you can be your own firefighter of your soul in your own relationship, you can stay together in friendship, in partnership forever. And I realize this now after many trials, tribulations, relationships, friends, loves. But that is what could save us all. Us all saying the peace treaty, waving the white flag, sitting down. And instead of just saying kumbaya, it's, I respect you. I respect you too. Let's take 5 and then let's continue. Anything else? Well, take your time to heal. Forgive if you choose, and then forgive for yourself, right? But in general, this whole thing is we're on this rock in space, flying. We only have this one life. Live it. Live it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that what's really interesting too is I find that the polarity of the genders are only getting worse, right? Because
Getting worse?
yeah, because I mean, right now we're dealing with just the whole idea of transgender, right? And so what's happened is, in a way, by saying I want to be both male and female, you've kind of diluted what it is to be male, what it is to be female.
Diluted. You don't think it amplifies?
No, because the amplification happens when you lean in to who you are, to accept who you are, right? Because and this is literally what happens in this country, right? In America, we have to be American. Sure, if we're all American, what does that even mean? Because many of us who say we're Americans don't look the same in this country. You could change that conversation in many other countries where like they'll never accept you as one of that people country. Like if you say Asian, like most people look like me, right? You come here to America, can you say all Americans look the same? No, because we have the most diversity in race and culture, right? So with that said, in that like we're leaning into being Asian dash American, it makes being an American much more potent versus if we're just American, what do we do? All eating fucking hamburgers and fries? You know? I mean, that's a stereotype of American culture, but today's American culture is not that. Today I can say, hey, in American culture, I can eat my Asian food and have Mexican food in the afternoon.
In the same
and in
day.
evening I can have Italian food, right?
Wow.
And that's the American concept. Yeah, right? Like I think in that evolution, what happened is in the gender we're diluting it. And I mean that in the best, in not in the best way, but like in facing kind of like our deeper trauma of like, and I say this because I've run into, I'm not saying all gay partners are running into this, but I find a lot of certain gays have experienced sexual trauma. And so what would happen is they will stick to their gender.
Yeah.
And then now we're dealing with that, like I feel like a boy when I was a girl when I was young, so I decided to change my physical gender. And so what you're doing is you're not allowing that female body to experience the diversity of experiencing that feminine aspect and the masculine aspect in her physical body. You know, because what's happening here is you're like, I don't accept my body, so I'm going to change it. Versus accepting that your body is built the way it is because you chose it, and the soul you have has the potential of both. And this is what we talk about in astrology when there's certain elements that tend to have a much more masculine, acting, moving energy, formless energy, which we call traditional Chinese medicine formless. And then the female is the water and the earth, the formed body, because we literally have to go through the womb to be turned into physical beings. That means that the feminine energy, the earth and water, it doesn't have to do anything. The earth and water don't have to do. They're just there, right? Their presence creates physicalness, presence. And so they don't have to go out and do stuff. So there are female bodies born with like fire elements. That doesn't mean that she has to stay feminine the entire life. That means that she has the breath of being able to experience both the femininity in her body, but that fire gives her that tweak where she's able to maybe connect with men in a platonic relationship because the fire of the men and the women will match, and they're able to find each other in that similarity, but know that they have the polarity of the physical body that one could create an attraction between them, or if they didn't have an attraction, or maybe an attraction in a friendship. Like, my attraction with you and a friend is that you make me say and talk about things that I don't get from other people, and that's attractive to me because I get to say things that I would never say if I wasn't around you, right?
Wow.
Or I act a different way when I'm around you versus other women. And so, but if we had that romantic relationship, what would happen is we would, in general, we would kind of go through our own like sexual trauma, but also if it didn't work out, most people don't stay friends. So I would have lost my connection to you, and I would never be able to have that connection where like,
again,
I need those questions asked, and you were so good at asking the question, but I can never ask you because we crossed the boundary of sexuality.
Wow.
And I find that in so many times, men, I say both sides, men and women tend to want to give in to the...
I got you. Deep breath in through the nose with me. I recently discovered what it is. You ready?
Yeah.
I need to hear the scientific, spiritual background of this, but I'm going to say it plainly. Everyone, hold your hats and horses. The demon of lust.
Yes.
So check it out. This is what I'd like to say. Sexual trauma. If it started in childhood, whether it was intentional, unintentional, uncle, cousin, friend, sister, brother, father, mother, however it happened, it was an acting in an unrestraint of lust, not love. It was conflicted, confused, or the paths were crossed. I've been meditating about this one for a while.
Yes.
I have. I've been sitting with it, and I've wanted to bring it to you, and I didn't know how and now here's the time. So with this, I'd like to hear your thoughts, and then I have more to share. But that's why it's so prevalent, because it's rampant. It propagates so quickly. It's a spirit. It's like you can't even, unless you're spiritually grounded, guarded, protected, and with yourself and your sensuality, and you know your triggers, you know your traumas, you are integrated with your shadow, lust, greed,
The seven sins.
seven
Pride, wrath.
will pass you by.
Yeah.
However, if you're not, you're being taken. And if you are hearing this and you're like, you probably have, and it's okay. But the one thing you can do to stop it is identify it, bring awareness, and recall your energy back to yourself. And then start to heal the trauma and trigger wounds of maybe someone's lack of self-control, or maybe your own lack of self-control. Because why do we still have neighborhoods with sexual predators in them? I don't want to talk about it, but what I do want to say is, then they need healing. If we're going to be together, if it's going to be community, if it's going to be under the rug, if it's going to be the elephant in the room, I'm going to talk about it. But I also will say they need healing then. So I have more on this, Charlie. Thank you for bringing this up, but I'd like to hear more.
Yeah. So, and is this very apropos for our theme, because we're in Scorpio season. Scorpio is the sign of sexuality and shadows and darkness. And I think the big elephant in the room
talk about it
on this planet, y'all, on this whole planet, not just in America.
Yeah.
It is sexual abuse. First with family, because I mean that's technically when you're a kid. That should technically only be the only thing you have around you is family. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then authority, right? Whether it's the clergy, okay? We don't even have to prove that the clergy has been involved in this, but there are so many other leaders in our community who's probably done sexual abuse to people under them. And so now we have a big problem that all those who were sexually abused are grown up. and I feel like what's happened is because no one talked about sexual. You guys know that sexual abuse is so rampant that it's like one in every third person is sexually
No.
abused.
What?
Yet no one talks about it, and that's why it keeps getting repeated. Right. And so really and the reason why now we have to talk about it is because until the last one is I don't know 8 years we've been talking about the stupid Epstein list. It's not stupid, but it's stupid because it happened. Epstein list and whatever other list where we were sexually abusing children and everybody else. We realize that we have a big problem, but everyone wants to talk about dealing with the crimes and dealing with the criminals. No one talks about healing the victims so that we are not re-perpetuating the problem.
Yes.
And not even if we don't perpetuate the problem, we will now limit our interactions with possible people that could be great for us. But because of sexual trauma, we have changed our lifestyle to defend ourselves from possible trauma again. Right. And so that's why you find now so many, gay couples and you guys have to understand that like, it's not always men on women or child, right? Not men abusing, but sometimes it's also women abusing.
Yeah.
On both sides, and that's the conversation we should be having. It's not a gender thing. It's a rampant problem. And I think it's like the second chakra just being really abused and battered.
Self-exploited.
Yes,
A
yes.
masochistic form, and then you feel like to get dominance over yourself or you have to impose or enforce it on people. It's sickness.
Yes.
But this is why I'm identifying it as a spirit flowing through it, because it's not almost always a physical, tangible thing. It knows no exact face, figure, body type, race, age, gender. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So one of the things that's super important in conversation about trauma in general that we don't talk about because it's really I'm going to talk about it. Mind control programming is a very rampant problem in our country and in our planet, and people don't realize how important that conversation is because there's codes of how it works. And one of them is when you traumatize anyone, people will disassociate. And in that disassociation, there's an opportunity to program new concepts and ideas in that disassociation. And so what we find is, and you can hear when people say it's like, oh, my lust took over and I couldn't help myself but do this onto someone because of what. And sometimes they don't remember that it happened to them. Because in the moment it happened to them, some of us will go, okay, I need to disassociate from this body. And what happens, your soul kind of takes a back seat. And at that point, when the trauma happens, you now can actually embed new codes. This is inherently what Stockholm Syndrome is about, right? And I use Stockholm Syndrome a lot because we're so caught up, all of us, in Stockholm Syndrome of the system that we keep repeating systemic patterns. And so I find that a lot of times in Stockholm Syndrome is you traumatize someone and you don't tell them who's traumatizing them. So you wear a mask and you traumatize someone. And then you take off the mask and then you come in and you give something like water or food, a gift to that traumatized person. That person will associate you with good tidings, good things, but you forget that that is also the kidnapper themselves.
Right.
And so what would happen is you will create dopamine receptors or trigger comfortability with that person's face. So I think what happens often is unfortunately, like, sexual trauma, yes, is bad, but it also feels good because what your body does when it is having this sexual physical things, right? Because you are feeling good in physically, but someone is abusing you and forcing you to feel that way, right? So you're both feeling good, but you're being dominated. And so what would happen is you would then want to have this physical connection with someone, but then sometimes you're like, but unless I'm being dominated, I can't actually get physically aroused.
Yeah.
And I've run into partners that have asked me, hey, I can't get aroused unless you tie me up. And sure, tying up, you guys can think, oh, that's cute. That's like, that would be hot, Charlie, right? Yeah. Not until she tells you she was sexually traumatized by her parent and he tied her up. Then you're like, okay, I cannot be repeating this pattern for her.
Ooh.
Right. And I mean, she was totally, fine until you start noticing there is this sexual misdirection when we're having intimate connection. And so now at that point, I'm having a hard time connecting because I'm naturally triggering the trauma that she experienced, but she may not recognize it because at that moment she's just
looking for pleasure.
We're in the pleasure moment, and we're not recognizing that pleasure is connected to a dominated, an abused scenario. And so when we even just take the sexual part, we go deeper into just like, how often are we found ourselves with like not a house, not a home, being like a orphan, and then you have one or two people who are just really good to you, but they're also kind of abusing you. And so in that level, you're like, well, nobody wanted me anyways.
Right.
So if that person is doing this to me, maybe this is okay.
Yeah.
And that will create the need for them to then possibly, as they get older, like, I'm doing this person a service by doing this to them. I need to introduce them to sexuality early because of how I was introduced. And so maybe I'm doing them a service because someone taught me early on how to
the game.
Exactly. And so we're just now repeating patterns based on Stockholm syndromes, right? Because we're repeating what the kidnappers have taught us, that it's okay to be in this state. I would say the same thing with stress. People are so comfortable with stress now that the Stockholm syndrome is, and I've done this a couple of times when I treat a patient, they're like, Charlie, I don't know what this quiet feeling in my brain feels like. I've never had it before. I go, what do you mean? Like, you're just calm? Yeah, I don't know what calm is, and I'm uncomfortable right now because I don't know how it feels to be this calm.
Wow.
Right? Because they're just so used,
Dr. Charlie,
to the adrenaline or the stress of everyday living.
Which could be a side effect from Stockholm syndrome and being abused.
It's not a side effect at that point. It is an intended effect.
Intended effect. Wow, that's the opposite.
Yeah, so it's the conditioning. That's called classical conditioning. Number 101 psychology. Classical conditioning is you condition someone with something. Period. That's basically mind control 101. Is you use classical conditioning, right? The good side of things, like we've done this as parents, you do this, you get rewarded, you do that, you get punished, right? It's one version of classical conditioning that you get rewarded and punished. That's why in today's day and age, we're now reconsidering what it is to do punishment and reward, because are we just practicing classical conditioning to our children, to our friends, right? Even this idea of like victimhood. Oh my God, today, poor me, you guys, this happened to me, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. How many people are going to go, oh my God, Charlie, I'm so sorry to hear that. And so sometimes people will create a scenario so that they can hear someone go, I'm so sorry that's happened to you, Charlie. How can we help you? Right? And so that person realized that, like, I can get help by just feeling like a victim. So they've conditioned themselves into creating that victim personality, right?
Persona.
Exactly. So I do think that in general, I think this deeper conversation that we're having is this, like, hurt people because they're conditioning themselves to feel comfortable with the hurt, right? And that's why today, like, wellness is such a big deal, because we're actually trying to go back to homeostasis, the natural flow of who we are, so that we're not living in anxiety, in depression, in uncontrolled lust. All these are, porn is a type of programming of our sexuality, right? But yeah, because that's the visual stimulation, right, is creating a condition where, like, wow, I felt good after watching this. So if I want to feel that good again, I watch some more.
But I always just thought porn equaled addiction. I didn't realize it was global programming.
I mean, what is addiction?
Oof.
Right? I mean,
say it.
Yeah. So addiction is really like when you're lacking something, you're looking for something to replace that. That's why, like in addiction, you don't ever remove the addiction and say, that's it. You go and replace the addiction with something else first that is much more constructive to you, right? But really, the inherent problem is something's removed. And in that being removed, you're now, like what I call dopamine triggers, you're now creating a dopamine trigger and attraction, conditioning to, every time I eat this chocolate, the chemicals that get released makes me feel so good. So now I'm addicted to chocolates.
Oh,
no. No, I wasn't trying to go
no.
at cacao ceremony here. I was just joking in chocolate because people are addicted. Not all the time.
Have you
Not
ever?
today's chocolate.
Not today's.
Like the Ferrero Rocher
Belgium?
chocolate. Oh, the European
you.
chocolates are really good. European
yeah.
chocolate. Today's American chocolate is crap.
Más o
y'all.
menos.
Yes. But yeah, I think that's like the inherent issue that we're running to, is this kind of like this attraction. And so even in lust, I mean, where do we learn what lust is? Where do we learn, our physical attraction is? Even like growing up, for me growing up, being attracted to maybe Asian women, and then eventually opening up to like, no, more than just Asian women, all types of women, right? But, when we're younger, like maybe I only hung out around Asian women, and my parents were always like, oh, you should get married a nice Asian woman, right? And so right now I'm getting conditioned to have an attraction to Asian women because that's what I'm comfortable with, right? Until for me, like when I finally like left home and kind of like lived in LA, which gives you ample experiences with different diverse groups, I started to realize that I wasn't just attracted to Asian women, I was attracted to all women, right? And so that exposure made me realize that my own programming was, I was programming myself into only looking and being attracted to a certain type of women. And so now when we kind of go back to this deeper sexual problems and sexual abuse, I feel like it's a little similar, because the word abuse, I mean, has a term for why it's abuse, but the person who's being abused doesn't always feel like they're being abused. This is kind of like that deeper conversation about abusive domestic relationships, where you have a very abusive partner, but you notice how long it takes for the other partner to finally leave an abusive relationship, is because they believe that abuse is normalizing their life, or that they don't feel good enough. And so I feel like that sexual trauma is this like very deep subconscious, valuing yourself or valuing your sexuality. And so I find that a lot of times is, and this, the sacral chakra, the second chakra, is a very early on trigger. I believe that is connected to when we go into teenagers. I believe that chakra is starting to really get developed. And so what happens is, even in Chinese medicine, we talk about how the reproduction starts to kick in and we are able to reproduce, but in that reproduction, we're also maturing very fast, right? That's why between the teenage years, 13 to 19, a child is growing so much, because all that sexual energy is redirected into the body to create a very sturdy, mature person. And so what we find actually in another tough conversation to talk about is when we talk about a great sexual abuse conversation, like I think 60% of it is unfortunately minors, under 13. And the reason for that is because as soon as like we hit that puberty stage, like we actually start developing, men start to become much more fertile, women become, more voluptuous, much more, they have their breasts because they're getting ready to have children, right? And so their body starts to develop during that age. But I find it's where like a lot of, minor abuse happens before 13, because they don't want you to mature. They want you to be stuck at that childlike level, because it's much easier to dominate a child than it is to dominate an adult. And so today, when we're having this deeper conversation of like, teachers, like, sometimes teachers could be the one causing a lot of these issues because they're the ones who are around these children, right?
Right.
And no one is having this deeper conversation of like, as much as we think it's normalized to send a whole bunch of kids into a school that, unless you grew up in that whole neighborhood, you don't know all the parents and all the kids. So you basically just sent your kid to a whole bunch of strangers. They're all going through like hormonal issues. And then we don't know what's happening in the school, right? And so the parents just assume things are good. But, how often does sexual attacks happen in the school ground? Well, because there's a ton of kids. There's a ton of basically, uninitiated children in their sexuality, don't know what they're doing. They're like looking down and going, "Oh my God, what is going on down here?" Women are like trying to, girls are trying to stuff their boobs because they're trying to look like adults, but they're not. So they're still kind of this awkward phase.
Yeah.
So that's a very important time to like build their confidence. But unfortunately, I find this is when we send them into high schools, and all the kids are having confidence issues. A lot of sexual abuse happened during that time because there's no adults now being there with these kids. And so what happens, you have kind of this perpetuate of sexual trauma. Everyone's hiding it, and these kids don't even know what just happened. So they're confused. And so that confusion gets disassociated. And so now as they become adults, that dissociated patterns show up in the relationship. And so now you have these sexual trauma that no one talks about, and then, help people process and heal. Like it was something I had to sit down with my partner and say, hey, like we should talk about this. This is weird. Unfortunately, this is new to me. I did not grow up being abused, so I don't want to like act like, well, since I didn't go through it, we shouldn't talk about it. No, like I don't know about it. Let's talk about it so that I don't feel so weird that you went through it and I might be perpetuating the same pattern, even though I've never abused anyone, right? I don't want to make it feel like I'm, just replacing an abuser to a partner. So that's kind of this deeper conversation of sexuality. And I think in general, that's caused almost this broken ability to have platonic relationship because the sexuality. So suddenly, like I've met many women who like, I don't talk to men. I'm not around men. I don't even talk to men. At that point, it's a sexual problem because they're afraid to be around men. So that there's a deeper problem. That means that they're not even able to access the wisdom in a whole nother population, right?
Wow. Well said, Dr. Charlie. A dance break for Dr. Charlie. He's breaking it up and down for us. Thank you. This is what I'd like to say. You love your partner, you loved her, or you had feelings for her, and you wanted to know, and you sat down and stopped. How we remedied this with children as it's already happening, because it's happening to children. We offer safe spaces and support groups for children. And I will go so far as to say, stopping the goo goo gaga from babies, baby talk. Hot take, talk to children as if they're adults. Because I was a child who was living an adult life, and no one talked to me as if I was a smart child or I was an aware child living an adult life. And I wish someone pulled me aside and spoke to me like that, because I always felt it. I was always aware. And in general, I'm highly sensitive to everything, everywhere, all the time, always. I just am. I've always felt this extra fervency and awareness and alertness. And I can say as a doula, helping women give birth, that fervency or your awareness starts as soon as you're born. How sensitive you are to the light, to the cold, to finding your mother. That's how we're always evolving and growing, but that awareness won't just grow bigger or less. I've seen it. And so I've always had a heightened sense of awareness. So if I was a child dealing with these big, monumental experiences, challenges, traumas, it would have been super beneficial, advantageous, just kind if I had safe adults who was aware of this rampant problem and didn't turn blind eyes, didn't just say, go have fun and play. And I could sit in a circle with boys and girls my age and we could talk about it or their experience. Because if I heard a child that would say, well, it's like, I don't even know what abuse is, like, what are you talking about? It would have shown me, well, maybe I can befriend them and maybe they can give me better advice or maybe they can tell me about how they're being raised because I want that. So, because outside of identifying it and massive amounts of people going through it, if we don't create the space and talk about it, then we're not creating the space and we're not talking about it. And what's the point? So through all of my ups and downs and big experiences I've lived in my life, I think the best way outside of just talk therapy is talking about it with people, men, women that you feel safe around, that value your connection and relationship. And Charlie talks often about how, yes, acupuncture can almost heal, remedy, alleviate most pain, most chronic pain. But if you've had a chronic issue for 20 years, don't expect to be healed completely in the first session. Give it time, 6, 7, 8, maybe. So that's the same way I feel. So if we start early with creating fundamental, foundational relationships between boys and girls, they'll have a better chance when they're adults. I was at a circle in Austin last week and last strong, and a child who spoke, well, they were 13, so a teenager who spoke at the circle had a poem about fire, but before they shared the poem, they talked about the part of where he's from in, I believe, Mexico City, somewhere. There's not Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. He was talking about the power that it's Scouts and it's one, and I thought, wow, the poem itself was amazing. The fire was amazing. But that really struck a chord with me because I always wanted to be a Girl Scout. But now that I'm camping and I'm creating a camping experience with 3 other men, if I was a child Girl Scout just doing scouts with my guy friends, like, I'd just be different. I wouldn't be 28 camping for the first time. And that's not a problem, right? We all got to start somewhere. The transition from that's it, the feast and famine of it. Camping has completely changed, transformed, elevated my life in every way. Maybe I could have used it at 15. Maybe that would have been great at 21. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think one of the deeper questions we should be having, in kind of having this conversation about platonic relationship is really modeling what it looks like. Mm-hmm. I think, I grew up, unfortunately, like, I watched, rom-com, right, romedy comedies, and, unfortunately, romedy comedies is always like,
Do you call it romedy?
Romedy comedy? Romantic comedy.
Romantic. It's like, what is this, Mr.
Yeah.
LA?
Yeah.
Romedy comedy.
Romedy,
You're
right?
Rama,
It's a romedy. Yeah. And, it's a lot of times, again, they create this, like, idealistic version of meeting and hooking up with partners. But, like, again, there's not a lot of appreciation for characters that don't always have to go into that romantic partnership.
There's
right?
none. I never see that in the storyboard.
Yeah, like, we should be having, like, why can't we have shows where, like, brothers and sisters have a great relationship and they don't have to get weird, right?
And there's no incest.
Exactly,
Wow.
exactly, right? Or even like parents, or even any kind of characters that, they don't have to build up that sexual tension. I think that Hollywood took the sexual tension too far. Yeah. And they're like, oh, that's because that's what people want. No, we coded them into wanting
that. Not that they inherently want that, because everyone wants deeper connection. I would even go so far as to say, hot take, you're watching porn not because you care about two other people getting it on. You want to see passion. And then you want to see passion in your own life, and you're hoping to see, maybe if they model it like this and I shake my ass like this, then I can get that. And it never works out. It doesn't work out. But I can say everyone's always on the precipice, cusp, looking for deep connection. So we should get off our phones, get off our screens, get off our addictions, get off the lust, get off the porn, and go find it in real life. Go. Just go now.
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go.
Yes, and I'm sure it's probably really hard because, again, maybe the addiction is that it's in their routines.
Yeah.
Right. So telling someone stop watching porn.
Well, let's replace it.
Right. Exactly.
Let's replace it.
Exactly.
Qigong.
That's what I was saying is like, yes, Qigong is one way of doing it, what we call cultivation of the sexual energy, but you're not releasing. Because really, for men in general, actually releasing the fluids is what actually weakens us. It's in all of our idioms. I mean, not idioms, but like, there's a reason why men who go into fights never have sex the night before. Same thing with sports. Coaches would tell them. So we inherently know what happens when we do. Yet, everything is telling us to keep doing it, right? So, for one thing, like we should have better porn, or really not porn, but actually better intimate shows where is seeing intimacy, but maybe no one's taking off their clothes.
Tantra?
Why can't we be attracted to someone who's like, I know it's a common one, but the trope of like men cooking, right? And women are like, oh my God, I'm so attracted to him. Like, we've lost this ability to be attracted to just mundane things. And we have to only be attracted to the
glitz,
naked, half naked, or skin showing, men and women. Right? To show, it was really funny. So Halloween is a common place where suddenly everybody becomes slutty, men and women, right?
Suddenly,
because until Halloween, right? No one is half naked walking around, right? I love this. I heard this. I think it was Whitney coming. She was saying how like, hey, you wear a bra and you wear an underwear and you put on a pointy witch's outfit. That's not a witch's costume. You're still haven't put on the costume yet. So put on some clothes and then you can be a witch. But wearing around lingerie with a witch's hat doesn't mean you're a witch, right?
Yo, she just snatched all y'all.
Exactly.
Yikes.
And again, it's this idea that like, why is Halloween the time when we create fright?
Wow.
And then we create sexuality. Right?
Are y'all hearing this?
Yeah, which is also Scorpio. So it's like very apropos that it's the zodiac sign of Scorpio.
And at the same time, Dia de los Muertos is happening, and veil is so thin.
Exactly.
A lot happening.
Yeah. So if I were to tell you that the ghosts are watching you watching porn. Oh, no. Maybe it'll help you not want to. Jeez. But maybe you're like, hey, ancestor, check this out.
No. Save and protect the ancestors. Close your eyes.
So, again, I think, joking aside, I think just going back to this deeper conversation of sexuality, I think one hot take I want to say in the medical space that a lot of people still struggle with today is a very controversial conversation, but stop cutting off the tip of your child's penis.
Ooh, let's take a deep breath. We've talked about this before. Please, Charlie, let the people know. What does it do to the second chakra? That's 0 to 4 of the child.
The second chakra is kind of this energy of sexuality, but it's actually creative energy first, right? Because in that creative energy, you can actually use that energy to create children. So in that creative energy is that sexuality. But what happens is now today, they just cut the tip of the forehead of the skin of the penis, right? And so what happens now is you basically took the cap off of the second chakra. And so now that child is basically desensitized on the tip. And so now the sexuality energy is just brewing without a cap on. So when they are the teenagers and they just can't hold their lust back, we were just talking about that, the uncontrollable lust. Well, if you physically took the control of the physical lust off of someone, now you can't control that child, and you can't expect them to go, oh yeah, how come that kid's just in, this is where we see teenagers like in the bathroom taking long showers,
Oh
going,
no.
what's wrong with the kid?
The
That's because
lotion.
now what's happening is that chakra is leaking because it gets activated. Like we said, 13 years old, boys are getting ready to become men, so their sacral chakra is being activated, being filled with fluids. But if the cap is off, what you want to do now is you want to exercise your sexuality, and now too much so because the cap is off. So I kind of want to stop there because I think there's a deeper conversation we can always have, and we're kind of running towards the end of our show. But as you can see, like, this is a very important topic to be had. Scorpio season is a great time to have this conversation, and it is unfortunately the time when there is a veil, and we are talking about death and rebirth and transformation, and that Scorpio is a very tricky situation because it's sex and death, and so
Wow.
sex, death, and taxes. And so, Scorpio is also this taboo, dark place that people don't want to talk. But it is shadow work, y'all. And shadow work is to face, medically, why are we cutting off, and activating children's sacral chakra such early on. So, in our culture, in the Asian culture, and I think some Europeans, we do not circumcise. And so it's a very common thing in the Jewish tradition and now in America, which you could arguably say, is ruled by a lot of the Jewish faith with the Christian faith together. And so you have all these rituals there. But, to me, that's a deeper conversation. If you were to have a conversation with me and you're asking me about whether or not you would cut the tip off of your child, I'd say no. Imagine what kind of trauma that 0-year-old is experiencing. Just because it can't cry, oh my God, it hurts, doesn't mean they're not feeling pain, right? So we're just, we already slapped the child awake. Welcome to the world. We hit their first chakra, like, life sucks. You got spanked and you're crying, boo-hoo you. And then we cut the tip off the second chakra. So now you just got 2 chakra abuse right before you leave the hospital. Like, geez, y'all.
Wait, how could that child not try to perpetuate that pain and trauma back? Not every time. I'm just saying, with so much early trauma and not talking about it, it's almost impossible circumstances for it just to be okay.
Exactly. So I would say, again, normalization is the sickness because we normalize such terrible behaviors. And yes, you guys, if you guys really want to have controversial conversation, debate, let's have it. I say we eventually create a panel.
Yeah.
Where we'll have people come, but in the comments, please ask questions and say whatever you want. Say whatever. If you think, yes, I'm glad that my penis is cut off and I have a clean penis, fine. But let's have a deeper conversation. Are you able to hold your lust, right?
Ooh.
And if you guys are all saying, yeah, we have a problem, and I've been sexually addicted and I have my circumcision, yeah, we should have this deeper conversation because if no one's talking about it,
there's deeper healing.
Exactly.
There's deeper healing on the table.
Exactly.
There's sexual healing. There's holding the wounds of this. There's holding yourself. There's sacral steaming, yoni steaming.
Ooh.
There's tea. There's hugs. There's sitz baths I use Dead Sea salt from Israel. There's the things. So don't run from yourself and run from your healing by embarrassment. The amount of adults I've heard in recent history, spiritual circles or otherwise, say I've either struggled with or been addicted to porn has blown me away. I'm just like, we're just all here looking and no one's saying anything. We're just way overstimulated in mind, and then we have a hard time to connect in real life. Miss me with that. I'm going to connect with myself deeply every single day of my life. Thus, my immediate surroundings, nature, sun, moon, earth, parents, friends, family, loved ones. So connect so you can connect and disconnect from what's disconnecting you.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So, this is kind of the end of our show today. It's a little bit shorter show today. But again, it's, the conversation of sexuality, but also deeper. Like, how can we go beyond sexuality to have relationships that are platonic with opposite sex, and I think this is a deeper conversation. Like, if you were abused by the opposite sex, for you to never want to talk to the opposite sex is kind of like racism, prejudice. Like, just because one person hurt me, the way that person and everything that person represent, I will never be around that person, whether it's a man, or black, white, Asian, whatever culture, right? It's prejudice. And so when abuse happens and it's man, it's again prejudice, that you'll never want to talk to a man because a man abused you, right? Or a woman abused you. So, I think we have to heal, because we as men and women cannot think that we can't come together in divine union of, working on a spiritual mission together and not having to cross the boundaries of sexuality.
It's true, because just in 9 to 5s, come on, corporate America, you're not trying to sleep with your coworkers. That's weird. That's whack.
Well, there's
Yeah.
definitely a deeper conversation with
Well,
that, because we all know that's
okay,
what HR is
but
around for, right?
I guess what I mean is, see your friends as your coworkers and want to co-create with them, because creating with your friends is radical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us, everybody. I hope keep the conversation going. And if you
Yeah.
have that friend that you really appreciate, like, please, opposite sex, please make it a point to let them know, because
Yeah.
the more we can value our friendship in the opposite sex, the more we're going to get more wisdom, so that in our partnership, we're able to communicate deeply with our partners, because we have friends who kind of tell us, that's not how women think, Charlie. Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me more, so I can be better as a partner for my partner who is that,
to you.
gender. Exactly.
Yeah. I believe platonic relationships prepare us and get us ready for our own divine romantic relationship. That's the building of it. So that's why they're so important to keep. And also, hot take, tell the people that you love them. Second, I love you all. Thank you. I also love me. And it's like this. Women, if you feel so called or close to guy friends, take them out. Buy them flowers. Buy them a journal. Men, if you feel like there's a girl that you really care about, but you're not trying to even sleep with her or be with her, send her a nice text. Give her flowers. Take her out. But I think it's like dating your friends. I don't like the word dating, the term. There's a better way to say it. That's the best way I can
Cultivate a relationship with
Yes.
someone.
Genuine connection.
Exactly.
And it will serve you both well. Oh man, the other day I had this amazing opportunity to help heal someone's leg, but as I was about to just help massage and heal her leg, a friend that she'd had for like 30 or 35 years pulled up, and they were just in connection. And I thought, wow, you never have to lose a solid friendship. They maintained it, and it looks so glorious. So it's possible.
Exactly. So thank you, everyone. And please
Thank you for
comment if,
listening.
this was controversial, and we want it to be controversial. Medicine is controversial at this point for us to find medicine again. So please leave comments, anything that you're interested in, so that we can talk next time about deeper conversation about platonic relationships with each other. So thank you, everyone. Until next time.
Take care. We love you. See you soon.